Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Transnet Freight Rail CEO Siyabonga Gama said at this week's Coal Trans Southern Africa Coal Conference that the South African coal line to Richards Bay would include a Botswana link in 7 years' time. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Transnet Freight Rail is planning a significant investment into the Waterberg in South Africa. Can you tell us more about this, as well as the link to Botswana?
Yes, the link to Botswana is interesting because Mother Nature doesn't look at boundaries between countries. And if you look at what we call the Waterberg and you look at what the Botswanans call the Mamabula coalfield, it's the same field, except politically they put a boundary across it. So we have to develop the Waterberg. No option. We've just got to... That's our energy lifeblood, that coal in the Waterberg, because it's our coal in the Mpumalanga region is depleting. So there has to be a rail infrastructure put in there. There has to be big investment, whether we like it or not, if we want energy, of course. And so we might as well extend it across the border and have a link, with Botswana. They also need to get to the market, and they need a port. Botswana's landlocked. We've been listening all week to the president saying there should be more collaboration between African countries and more intra-Africa trade. Well, this is an example of really doing what's logical. And Botswana itself has been looking west. They've been talking Trans-Kalahari Rail, which would have cost a lot of money, going to Windhoek and exporting to Europe mainly from Windhoek. But it makes far more sense for this landlocked country to come east, because there's far more infrastructure already placed. It just has to be upgraded and the links have to be put in. So Siyabonga Gama, let the cat out of the bag that he is going to incorporate Botswana into this, and he told the Coal Trans Southern African Conference, and that the link would then be from the Mamabula coalfield to Lephalale, which is the heart of our Waterberg coalfield, and then through Tabazimbi and to Ogies in the depleting, Mpumalanga coalfield, and then off to Richards Bay, which is probably one of the most efficient ports in the world. Certainly our most efficient port and coal port. I'm not saying that the iron ore port isn't efficient, but it is a recognized outlet. And, what's going to happen, and you can see from the coal map that's come out, the coal road map, they're saying, hey, those power stations, you've got to keep them, whether you like it or not. Eskom's got 13 power stations. The bulk of them are in Mpumalanga, because the thinking in the old days was that you don't bring the coal to the power station, you take the power station to the coal. That's much cheaper because the logistics costs are horrific. And our model that we've had for all these years is that you bring the coal out of the ground, put it on a conveyor belt, get it straight to Eskom, then they must deal with it in the power station. What is happening now is that we can't get rid of those fleet of power stations in Mpumalanga. We need them desperately. But we haven't got the coal there, or we won't have the coal there for much longer. So we're going to have to bring the coal from the Waterberg. Besides, additional power stations in the Waterberg, we've got Medupi going up there now. There is Grootegeluk with the Timber power station. And there'll probably be more power stations there. But the rail link will also have to bring the coal down to Mpumalanga and then feed it into these existing power stations. And there is always this dual policy that we've got with coal, where it's the business plan is you must export and you must give to Eskom. So volume at low price goes to Eskom, value at high price, but lower volume goes off on the export front. So 27% of our coal that is export brought in nearly 2/3 of the profits, So we have to have that. In order to keep giving Eskom lower priced coal, we've got to export as well.
And rail is so much more efficient than road.
Well, our roads have been churned up. It's the idea of using the roads to transport coal has wreaked havoc on our road network. I think sometimes there should be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Those people who were running Eskom at that time, it's all very well trying to persecute the existing management. They should call up that old management and say, hey guys, what have you done? You got paid fantastic bonuses. You've sabotaged our country. I can remember by accident entering a meeting suppliers to Eskom. And I was stunned at the way this Eskom executive was berating those suppliers, telling them to bring their prices down. I mean, that particular individual who used to walk through Eskom's corridors like a centurion, he didn't have a clue. He had no idea what this whole business plan was about. And yet he was so obnoxious. I think those people should be called to account, because they're all hiding, They've disappeared off the face of the earth. And it's just really not fair, because they've left us with a terrible legacy, and the existing management is having to bear the brunt.
But now back to our topic. These developments happening in the Waterberg are integrated through the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission. Can you tell us about that?
It's good that the President's grabbed this issue by the throat and said, look, we've got to put in infrastructure. Let's try and take some of the decision-making to the centre to make sure that these things happen. So it's come under this PICC, which is the Presidential Integration Committee. The Waterberg is going to come out of that, and also involve these other acronyms like SIP, which is a strategic infrastructure plan, and things like that. I'm just not interested in the acronyms anymore. You want action, and you do detect that there is some action taking place, but I would still like to see more on the ground, because time runs out so fast. And we can see that if you have some labour problems, how it can set things back. And I think South Africa has to have zero tolerance now to having anything stand in the way of the generation of energy that we need. It's become very urgent. This coal issue is becoming very urgent. And they still are embarking on unorthodox methods of getting this coal. They're saying that 1 billion tonnes must come from emerging juniors, and those juniors must be black controlled. To try and intervene at that level, it could upset the funding. I mean, you've got to make sure. Up to now, we've got 61% of our coal from 8 big coal mines. Now, the new idea is that you get the bulk of your coal from smaller operators, and you're hoping that they'll consolidate. They've still got to drill the holes and find the coal. I don't know, are they playing fast and loose with this country's future? You can't fiddle around on the energy front. We should have learned from 2008. Have we learned? I mean, we don't see enough urgency. We see a lot of intervention. That I came out of one meeting that had with coal juniors, and the guys were just shaking their heads saying, look, what are they trying to do here? It's going to be so difficult. We need that coal. It's urgent. We must get it out of the ground. We must have constant reports. I mean, we had a meeting, called to Eskom, told about this wonderful new model where you're going to have small juniors emerging, and they're going to be more than 50%. We don't worry about these 33 BEEs who've got 26%. No, these must have more than 50%, 50.01 or whatever, but it must be 50.01 black. Okay, where are they? They haven't called us to another meeting. Now, they must call us to another meeting, tell us what's going on. I mean, you can't play fast and loose with the country's future, because you are going to hammer the poorest people and the richest people and everyone in between here. You're going to sabotage the economy of the country if you don't get that energy going.
And they're hoping to have the line in 7 years. That's a very short time, especially if they want new miners to start all of this. Yeah,
look, I want some action on the ground. I mean, they've been talking about this for a long time now. Talk is cheap as far as I'm concerned. When you say, well, what about the Swazi link? Because that was supposed to take some of the coal, some of the non-coal off the coal line, go via Swaziland. Oh, it's up to the environmentalists. I mean, we can't wait with those sort of answers. I'm sorry. No flippant little answers. I'm not interested. And one of the speakers said, when we had the 2010 World Cup here, we saw fantastic bridges being built, and they met the deadline. By the time people were coming in to this, they were going over new flyovers. What about improving that line? There's a tunnel section. And there wasn't a proper answer given. I don't think it's fair on South Africans. I think people who are in the employ of government and in the employ of public sector enterprises, they must show some conscientious. Don't fool around in public forums. They must be level-headed. They must give correct answers, or otherwise, if it's too hot in the kitchen, they must get out.
Now, what type of capacities are they looking at for this big plan?
Yeah, I mean, Eskom is going to require just domestically, like 30 million tons on rail. It's going to be a completely new story here, and a more complex story. We've already had problems where the previous management of Eskom did not renew contracts early enough. Those people should be called to account, as I'm saying, because they really are. They're guilty of dereliction of duty. They should, they should at least apologize, not hide away. And now the volumes that will need to go by rail are going to be exponentially high. And even the Richards Bay coal line, I mean, they're saying they will lift that to a capacity of 95 million tons. So the capacity increases needed all over the place. And I don't see enough action. I see people talking at conferences and not even giving conscientious answers as far as I'm concerned. They don't seem to realize the gravity of the situation. And they are really in our employ, and I think that they should put their best foot forward.
This is something serious that we could actually strike about.
Well, I mean, this is something that we're looking for smart leadership at the moment. All we get is red tape. The world has got smart technology. It's got smart management. We want smart government. And, people should start demanding smart leadership, because this ego display, as I witnessed at one conference this week, where the one is putting the other one down, I mean, it is childish, to say the least. And we can't have this empire building again. The people who go into state-owned enterprises must have the right decorum, the right conscientiousness, and they must get the job done. It mustn't just be talk about the job done. We must be seeing that the job is done. They must be showing us how it's being done. And that's not the case at the moment.
Well, there's an election next year. We can see if that speaks anything.
Well, the election is a very complicating issue, because you get all sorts of political interventions during this time, and we just haven't got the time to waste, quite frankly. There's no time. It is urgent. The biggest, number one priority at the moment is to ensure that Eskom gets coal. Because if Eskom doesn't get coal, we go backwards very, very fast. You can't grow, you can't ask for foreign direct investment, you can't ask for domestic investment, because you've got a shrinking power footprint, and that we can't afford.
Well, thank you for your insight, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.